few years ago, I gave a presentation from a spot where President Obama had spoken just a few months prior. And this isn't because I'm an especially fancy or special presenter. He came to the building where I worked, and he'd presented in that room. I happened to be on the same floor where I always worked. The day that he spoke, I didn't even come to work. They made most non-essential personnel stay at home for security reasons. But I knew he was there. I knew he had been at that particular spot, and there I found myself presenting to a much smaller and less important audience, but nonetheless from where a president had just spoken. And I'd heard people talk about dry mouth, but I'd never had dry mouth myself. That is the first and only time I've ever had dry mouth. About 10 seconds into my presentation, I could tell my mouth wasn't resalivating itself, and it just got drier and drier and drier, and my tongue was kind of sticking to the roof of my mouth. My enunciation was still clear enough, but I could tell it wasn't as clear as it could be. I pressed on forward, did okay. Luckily, that presentation had a built-in break where I had somebody else come up and speak. I had a few guests that were a part of the presentation, and when I sat down, I was able to chug some water and reset my salivary glands. My point is, when that happened, when that nervousness crossed over from mental to physical in a way that I couldn't stop, I just pressed on through. I didn't say, I'm sorry, I didn't make up excuses, I didn't draw attention to it. I just kept speaking, and I spoke clearly enough, even though I didn't have that saliva in my mouth, and things were just fine. I have the same advice for you. The next time you're speaking and nervousness strikes, just press on through. Don't make it any bigger of a deal than it needs to be. From my experience, your nervousness will crescendo as you're going on stage, as you're being introduced. For me, that's when it gets the worst. But then once I get into the presentation, I say the first portion of my introduction, I start getting into that second portion of my presentation, it goes way down. I get in my groove. I remember all this stuff I've rehearsed. I'm the master of this information. I'm here to convey it. It's information my audience wants to hear. They're going to appreciate it. You'll feel better too. So if nervousness happens, just push on through. We can do a lot of things to try to prevent it, but sometimes we can't. And when it strikes regardless, don't let it get you down. Keep going.